I see.
Here we go! It's time to do this once again! It's time to dim the lights and let the feedback build! 3 clicks and sticks! And we're ready to explode! We say
This content is for informational and educational purposes only. You should not construe any such information or other material as legal, tax, investment, financial, or other advice. Nothing contained here constitutes a solicitation, recommendation, endorsement, or offer to buy or sell any securities or other financial instruments whatsoever by Draper Gorin Blockchain, aka DGB, the presenter, or other associated parties for the content being provided. Please do your own due diligence and seek proper counsel.
Boom. Welcome.
I love that.
Episode number 51 of the DGB family DGB hang session. Oh man, we're almost, so this is something I was going to mention. We're almost a year into this. So next week will be the last one of 52 weeks straight, which means the following one is an anniversary of 1 year. We should do something cool for that. That's crazy and mind blowing. But what I was gonna say, actually, before I get into all that and talk about it, yeah, and Zuda, that's a Fame Lady Squad. He asked if I own the World of Women that does the disclosure. I do own, I think it's 6 World of Women with my daughter, but that's Frankie Fame, our Fame Lady Squad or Fame Lady Society. I think they've done some things. But before I go into it, what I heard the song and okay, so I don't want to say it out loud, but what I will say is Joe, one of my buddies, old punk rock buddies from many years ago, he's going through something right now, and I just saw it the other day, and I don't know if he wants it blasted publicly and all that, but he said it on Facebook, so I'll give a vague version. It's just give I don't know if you some people pray, some people give love, some people do thoughts, prayers, whatever the heck your version of that is. Just that band Out of Trust has given us lots of joy by letting us steal their song for the intro and get us all pumped up every single week. He asked for some thoughts, so give him some love. Going back to what we were talking about before. First off, actually, Chris, welcome. This is your first time on this stream, right?
Yes,
did you join us back in the day when we were doing blockchain and booze? Did you ever join one of those streams?
I joined a few of those. Yeah.
Cool. So I know that we've seen each other in real life at the events in LA in years past and things like that. But so Chris does something called Coinstructive and Crypto Recovery Alliance. So we're going to talk to him about that stuff. But getting back really quickly to 52 weeks into this thing, I feel like, so I was going to say next week, episode number 52, that's 1 year, but it's the following week. That's like the 1 year anniversary. So 2 weeks from now, oh crap, is that gonna be like Christmas? We never miss a week, but that's a good reason to miss it. Yeah, exactly.
For our anniversary, we're taking it off.
That's right. It's Christmas Eve. Shit.
I think I might be around. I think I'm back that day.
Yeah, but like, is anybody else online? Like, I feel like
they're all gonna be off work.
They're all gonna be home watching
around.
us. They're all gonna be watching us online.
It's probably an ideal time.
Bring the children around the campfire. Let's all do some DGB family hang. Okay, well, let's figure it out. Either Christmas Eve, maybe the day before. Maybe we'll do a makeup session where we do a couple 2 hours long. What?
We do it in the metaverse, and we invite everybody to come in through the metaverse with us at our headquarters.
That's a good idea too. Well, let's think of something weird to do. We got to do something weird. I was thinking throwback to.
That's really weird. Trust me.
It is really weird. So that's a good idea. if you remember on Blockchain Booze episode number 69, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. We made it really weird, and that was the first iteration of having a theme song opening for Blockchain Booze. Zuda's working on a theme song. Rankin, you make some weird ass art sometimes, or puppet shit, and I can make a song or something. Maybe we make it a family hang, right? I'm coming up with this right now, so tell me if this is really stupid. We make it a family hang. We invite everyone. Cost of entry for being on the stream itself. Maybe that will be an excuse for people not to show up. But hear me out. Like Zuda gonna come on. If he wants to come on, he's got to bring some kind of piece of art to the show and show it to everyone, right? Like we want Kevin. He's got to come on if it's a 1-year anniversary. He's probably been on the show more times than anyone other than us. But he's got to bring something, right? And like maybe we do something like that where it's like a little bit of a art show, talent show. Keep it really weird, you know? Like, you know, everyone mints their thing as an NFT, and we share it with each other like a Secret Santa. Like we do some kind of thing where we don't know going in who's going to get the minted piece of art. And one of those things might be our new theme song.
How to orchestrate that?
We could just do like a random number generator kind of thing live. Well, it shouldn't be too hard, right? I don't know. We'll just throw it out there. Good idea, bad idea. Will it just end up being me and you because nobody will do anything?
Well, we'll find out. I'm sure we can figure something out. We'll get 1 or 2 people randomly join us.
Yeah, and your AI song is art too, and you've been doing a bunch. I'm behind on checking some of those out, so I know that you texted me. I'm gonna check those out, Zuda.
It sounds like it's just gonna be a day of bad comedy.
I mean, not much different from every other week, right?
Having people laugh at us, right?
I'm used to it. I'm into it, clearly. Like, I think I realized at one point I was like, had a little bit of embarrassment in me, and then I just leaned in and went like, oh, well, I don't mind at all.
You know, I think I had a conversation with Coop once on this. Is, you know, the problem with the blockchain, you got to be careful as to what mistakes or videos you put out there, because if you do, it may permanently be out there.
Well, I will say that all of the talk about IPFS being permanent and all this stuff, turns out it's not that permanent unless you do
that
it.
Might be a good thing for some people. That might be.
That is it. I think, you know, here's the thing: is it's supposed to be a feature that is permanent. So when it doesn't work, that's not a good thing. But it's also a feature of AWS and Google and all that stuff that is not permanent, and that's why you use it, right? So there's a use case for everything, and not everything should be permanent. Right. And that's the issue, right? Like, you know, like when you talk to companies and stuff and they're pitching you some idea and you're like, this is totally unnecessary. Like, we don't need a blockchain for this. Like, this is not needed by anyone, but they're trying to shoehorn some idea together. Like, it's kind of the opposite of that. Right. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Just speaking about permanent though, and what you do on chain can really, can come back to you, or what you do off chain can come back to you and hurt what you have on chain. Chris, you're doing the Crypto Recovery Alliance. But before we go into all that stuff, Chris, you want to give everyone your background and tell everyone what Coinstructive is and everything else that you're doing before we start talk about Crypto Recovery Alliance?
Sure. Thanks for having me on the show, guys.
Of course.
It's great to be here and reconnect. I got into crypto in 2012-ish, 2013, and I started Coinstructive in 2015. And it's changed. The business model's changed multiple times since then, right? But it's been basically the last 4 or 5 years now, we've been doing two main things, which is compliance as a service. So we work with like smaller crypto financial institutions where I act as the like chief compliance officer, so that we can help people keep their noses out of trouble. And
like what kind of company do you mean by that? Like compliance for like a DeFi product or something?
So any financial institution that's going to have a customer base and need a compliance policy, typically, so like DEXs, exchanges, Bitcoin ATM companies, swaps.
Are you talking AML?
Yeah, AML, all of the anti-money laundering, BSA, Bank Secrecy Act stuff, right? So you have to have a policy. And one of the reasons I got into that was, well, I started a Bitcoin ATM company with some folks in 2017, and I became the compliance officer because I knew people in the space I could lean on for that kind of, for that that guidance. And so I took that on, and then there was a gentleman in San Diego, where I'm from, in the community, and he ended up getting arrested and thrown in jail for a couple years because he was living in Tijuana and coming back and forth across the border, like most people. A lot of people do that.
Yeah.
And but he was selling Bitcoin as an unregistered money transmitter, basically, or an unregistered money services business.
Was the issue that he's going across the border part of why it made him not compliant? Or was it just that?
That was an extra layer. That was like
Yeah.
that was like the cherry on top, because now it wasn't just money laundering, it was international money laundering.
Oh shit.
Right. So
Yeah.
and this guy, like, he spent his 21st birthday in jail.
Oof.
And
Dude, and that's extra crazy when you say that. When you say that, it's he's a kid, right? Like trying something new. He probably, like, I'm assuming the dollar amounts weren't as crazy as anyone would think that would put you in jail, right? But
well, it sounds like all those guys who were growing marijuana got arrested for it, went to federal prison, and then came out 10 years later, and all of a sudden it was all legal.
Right. Yeah. It feels like it feels similar to that. Like, he wasn't necessarily trying to do the wrong thing, but all he had to do was fill out a form, say, I'm going to be doing this, and send it into FinCEN. That was literally a free form. He went to jail because he didn't fill out a free form.
Because he didn't know about
it. Exactly, which is why I started offering these services for folks, because not everybody wants to go out and hire a full-time chief compliance officer because they don't have an extra $150K lying around, right? But you might need somebody for 10, 15, 20, 50 hours a month, right? So we come in, I'll do the high level stuff. We help set up policies, and then I usually have an analyst that works underneath me that's doing the day-to-day stuff. I'm doing the double checks, and then we're filing all the things and making sure that, so we're kind of like a compliance department, like an outsourced compliance department for hire, which most people are like, great, just take it off my plate, because the small companies, when they start, it's the CEO is doing everything. And FinCEN doesn't like when the CEO is the chief compliance officer. And I'll tell you why. It's because the chief compliance officer is constantly looking at things that look suspicious or bad, and like kicking people out of the system, saying that close that account, get rid of this guy, this is bad, file a SAR on this guy, like suspicious activity report is what a SAR is. And the CEO's job is to bring in more customers, get more revenue, right? And so if the CEO is the chief compliance officer, they're usually, it doesn't work.
There's a conflict. Yeah. Well, but at the same time, you're hired by the CEO. So does that ever, like, they're hiring you so they know they need it, right? But does it ever get you in a little bit of conflict with the CEO? Like, I'm the type of person that, like, I love a team member that pushes back, that like goes like, no, this is wrong, or you know, I'm in charge of customer service and this isn't good customer service, we need to do it different. I love that kind of thing. But most people are like, you know, fuck you, you work for me, let's make this work, right?
There's had problems like that? There's definitely a balance you have to find with owners, because like some people say, well, how much can we do before it's illegal? Like, that's literally the question I've been asked. And you're like, oh, okay, well, now I know what kind of client I'm dealing with, right? Like, that's crazy. And so, you do have to walk a line. And there is like, so the crazy thing about, so I like to equate compliance to like cybersecurity in a sense. And because, you know, you can get McAfee and Norton and like all these things, and you can have a CISO and, you know, and you can put all these things, and you can keep adding stuff to your back end, and you can always do more, right? Right. There's always something more. We can spend more money. We can get more tools. We can do more things. Same thing with compliance, right? There's a ground level that, like, okay, here's the baseline. Everybody needs to play by this. But then you need to have, like, it's almost like an art. Like, you need to say, like, well, these things are happening within our business. Our risk profile is such that we need to address like a Bitcoin ATM company, we need to address people that are coming to the machine that we don't really know if that's their real name.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so little things like that, like some people are like, well, we don't care. Just they're doing small amounts, right? Well, okay, well, that's not what our policies say. So like, right, it's like little things where you got to bring people into alignment. And yes, there's usually a battle there. Sometimes there's a battle there, which is really interesting because people hire you as the expert, and then when you tell them things, they go, I don't know. I don't know if I want to do that. So you almost need like a second person to like give a second opinion that also coincides with you. So
Well,
that
you
they're
gotta,
like,
it's like,
oh, okay,
it's
I
a
guess
little
we
bit
should do that.
like lawyers, and there is a little bit of like diminished returns. Like you have to do, of course, you should at least do the bare minimum. You should probably do more. But if you ask, depending on who you ask, right? Like there's like, I always have this thing, like it's one of the, there's questions sometimes where if you ask 5 lawyers to give you 10 answers, right? So there isn't, you have to go, okay, what's the most conservative person saying? And then what's the most insanely, you know, non-conservative person saying? Where you need to fall is somewhere in the middle, especially in crypto in the United States, where there is no written anything. Like you obviously do absolutely nothing that would be considered fraud in anyone's book. But then legal things like not putting in a special filing as a thing is a big deal. Not checking that someone is an accredited investor brings liability on you. But here's the thing, is that if you're doing something in crypto, most lawyers, or maybe a crypto lawyer, might give you an opinion letter saying this is not a security. If it's not a security, you don't legally need to check if somebody's an accredited investor. If you check that they're an accredited investor, are you now admitting that it's a security, or are you playing it safe? And right. There's this weird balance, and people don't know what to do. And that's the biggest problem with what we've always talked about United States versus other parts of the world.
It's
crazy.
I also look at it like, okay, so this space, decentralized finance, right? We're swapping through these liquidity pools. Some people are providing liquidity. You know, like what level of risk is to the user? And the thing is these are just normal people out there utilizing this technology. And yet, you know, it's one of these things. Is all of a sudden we're going to find out that we've all been violating some law that we didn't know about because we're just.
You're acting as a bank.
And then
that's what they've been talking about on the Lightning Network forever. They've been saying people on the Lightning Network are money transmitters.
Are they? Yeah. Well, so like,
right?
You know, if you're providing liquidity, if you're providing liquidity to a liquidity pool, are you a money transmitter? I'm like, as far as I'm concerned, I'm giving my money over to a protocol, and just like I would give my money over to a bank.
Yeah.
You know, and I would expect the protocol or the bank to be the one taking care of all this.
But
stuff.
Is the protocol the bank, or are you the bank? Right? Like, and
no, actually no, because when you put your money into a liquidity pool, it's no longer in your wallet. It's actually in the smart contract.
Yeah.
And so, like, why would the individual be responsible? If I give my money to the bank, I'm not the one responsible.
But I also feel like if a 17-year-old kid who's really good at writing smart contracts creates that thing, and then millions of dollars from other people's pockets go in there, does that person, because they push the button to launch that thing, are they a bank? Like, it's
they're not a country, weird. At least. They can't be censored by OPEC.
These are really good philosophical like debate questions, right? And this is why people think, because of the type of work that I do, people think that I'm a lawyer. Like I'm not. I just need to. I'm not a lawyer.
Well, I mean,
right? I'm like, I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night, but you know.
That's not $1,000 an hour lawyer digs, right?
I love the crypto space, and it's nice making a little bit of money. But if we all end up in jail for 10 years, it won't be worth it.
Right? Well, not for me. But here's the thing: is I don't think that's in the books for people like us who are providing liquidity. People who are playing around. Technically, the onus should be on the. Well, it's really messed up because it shouldn't also be on the people who launch some of this stuff, depending on what they do. Now, if people commit fraud and things like that, I feel like I have a similar stance to like guns and weapons, right? Like I'm not a super everyone should be able to allow to have guns, but you can skip that debate for a minute and just go, how about this? Like every single person who does use a gun or a weapon for something really horrible, let's just give them 10 times what the current punishment is. That will stop people from doing, you know, what's illegal with it. And I feel like fraud in the crypto space doesn't even get touched that much because people are more focused on like securities laws or things like that. Like I really couldn't give a shit if someone who's not an accredited investor invests in something. I care a lot more that if somebody defrauds that person, right? But there's like weird archaic securities laws. There's also even those AML kind of laws, the $10,000 limit. What year was that created, the $10,000 limit? I think it was like in the 70s or something like that. Like in today's dollars, it's probably like 3 or 4 times that number. So if 10K was the number in 1970, I'm just making this up, so somebody will correct me at some point, or somebody watching. But like
you're close
today,
enough.
that's like, I don't know, 40 or 50K, but we still have the 10K rule. Is that really fair, right?
Well,
when the average salary is 4 or 5 times more.
They were talking about upping the accredited investor limit too.
Yeah, they did it by inflation, by the year that they made like certain rules. Like they upped it from like, actually they didn't, I don't know if they did the accredited investor. No, they didn't do the accredited investor one. They did the crowdfunding rules. But because the crowdfunding rules were from 2012 and the government lied to us about what inflation is, the 100K limit, it's like, I don't know, 105K now. Like it's really not a meaningful, good enough change. They did do a rule that brought a number from 1 million to 5 million, which was good for crowdfunding a little bit, but still pretty small for most. And again, only for people who comply. And that's not crypto. And most crypto things people don't think are securities until the government says they are. And guess what? They're going after everyone, and they're too late on things like FTX and people who really defraud us, right?
And Chris, the good thing is we're not lawyers either.
Obviously. But we have opinions for days.
We have big opinions, but no, we're not lawyers.
Well, we've all worked with numerous lawyers over time, right? And we all have connections in the space to people who are lawyers. So we've heard all of these opinions, right? Like, and a lot, and you know, here's the really great thing about the lawyers in this space, right? Because they are super excited about everything because everything's new. Right? Interpretation. Like most people in law are regurgitating the things that they've seen over and over and over. And then they're just like pulling out their hair and they're like, why did I go to law school? Why do I have all this debt? Law sucks. But the crypto lawyers are like, yes, let's get philosophical for a minute. Let's sit down and explore this. And let's think through this as an academic, right? And then we'll write a paper.
Well, that's an awesome luxury to have in an industry where they printed money for the last few years because there was no regulation. For a few more years, they're going to print money because people are going to come back to the United States. Actually, no, they're going to print money because people will interpret what regulation does get made, but it still won't be law yet. It'll take a few more years for it to be like the SEC to actually like write it into code and things like that. And then they'll spend a few more years making money, bringing people back to the United States who left. It's the greatest gig in the world. They're the only people that have won in our space so far. I don't think I'm saying that in a exaggerated, funny way because I do appreciate the crypto lawyers who are like the diehards. You know, my favorite one, and I think I've probably said this out loud, is Mark Boyron, who was a great crypto lawyer that I got to talk to a lot back in the day. And then he went to DYDX, then he went to Polygon. Now he's the CEO of Polygon, right? It is kind of funny in a way that they made a lawyer the CEO of Polygon, but it makes perfect sense in the regulatory environment we had. You know, I wish I could call him up and have him represent me, but there's other great ones we've had on the show before. We have the DLT law guys, a bunch of others, and we should actually have some of them back because I feel like we should have a talk with crypto lawyers now with the new administration and their feelings and stuff. It'll be an interesting talk. Chris, maybe you'll join us on that one again from your perspective. But tell us, you know, so that's what you do is the compliance.
So that's half of what Coinstructive does, and then the other half, which marries right into the compliance work, is the work with victims directly. So we do crypto blockchain forensics investigation work, right? And the great thing is when you work with victims directly, right? The victims will tell you the story of what happened because they want help, right? They're like, most of the time that people come to us, they need help. They know they need help. There's kind of these stages of victimhood, and the first one is usually like not even admitting to yourself that you're being scammed, right? So sometimes you get those people come to you and they're like, well, I don't really need help. I just need you to help me figure out how to get the money off of this exchange.
Yeah, so Just so that we break it down a little bit. When you say victim, you're talking about victims of scams, or are you talking about victims of like someone hacked my ledger and took my
Both.
money, or both? Okay,
Both.
you're talking about both.
Yeah.
Okay.
But basically, I mean, I have a guy I got to get back to today because he says I hadn't opened my ledger in a year. I opened it up, and then it's drained.
Wow.
And I'm like,
It
okay.
was drained when he opened it up, like as part of opening it up,
I-
or it was drained in the meantime in the last year. You know,
the details were, that's why I got to
fuzzy.
reach out.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
But like,
Somebody found a C-frame maybe.
right. So it could be numerous things as to
Yeah.
the reasons why. But like this
Yeah.
is, but usually these are the people that will tell you like what happened to me.
Yeah.
Right. Here's what happened to me. Maybe I don't know all of the things, but this is how I got myself into this mess.
Yeah.
So on the compliance side, what that helps you is it helps you understand what kind of questions to ask when like potential victims are at a platform and they're like, oh yeah, well I just need to buy, $30,000 of Bitcoin right now. Well, why? Right? Like, you say your job is you're retired. You're retired. This is for a business. Like, what is, you start asking these questions and you start realizing like, oh, well, this is for my fiance. Oh, where's your fiance? Oh, well, he's in Turkey and he's in the military, right? And well, have you ever met him? No.
Oh,
Okay.
shit.
Are
Yeah.
like, and it's like, but it started out with, oh, I just need to do this $30,000 transaction because I have to send money to a thing for a business thing.
I worked
Right.
as a teller at a bank, one of my like first kind of jobs outside of my family business thing. And I had an old person, like an older person, have a printout of one of those like Nigerian prince email things. They printed the email to bring to us to show us the wire instructions and stuff so they could send a few $1,000 to their prince. And we're like, we're trying to convince them. They're like, no, this is somebody I met online. I need to send them the money. And then we had to bring in like the branch manager person to try to convince them because they looked at me. They're like, oh, you're a stupid kid. You just don't want to do my transaction. And I had to bring, the branch manager so she could talk to them and go, look, I know you're worried. I know you think that, this person is like this, but this is a common scam. And think about that in these day and age where they just go to online banking and send money. Some people don't realize they're scammed till after the fact, right?
Being a co-host of a local crypto group, I get that every couple of months. I get somebody who was scammed. We typically call it pig butchering, right, in the crypto space. And they've met somebody through a dating site, or vice versa, who then talks about crypto or stocks. It starts off talking stocks, then they start talking about how they're making money, or they have this great mining investment that they're doing. And all they have to do is they don't even have to give them money. They can do it themselves. Here's how you do it. You put it in a wallet, and then all of a sudden, before they know it, they're putting it into a platform that's not even a legit platform. But the average person doesn't know how to do a who is on a domain name and see that the domain name has only been in existence for a year, right? Yeah. And it's sad because you start educating the person, and I usually start by explaining the difference between the traditional banking system, which is a pull system, versus crypto being a push system. And then you explain how, one, they can pull money back when you push, and it can't come back unless somebody else pushes it back. You explain this because they all think, well, I can just get my money back, right? And then like, no, this is the differences between the two. And then you start the educational process. By the time you're done, they've already realized they're probably not getting their money back.
Yeah.
Well, it's a really sad feature. And I mean,
here's the thing. I think the thing that sorry. I was just gonna say the one thing everyone needs to know, and we all know, everyone knows this, but then they get sucked in, is that when it's too good to be true, it's too good to be true. And people think that they've heard all these crypto stories, so obviously in crypto, but you have to just it's really basic common sense. If David Rankin tells me, hey bro, if you put in 10,000, you're gonna get $1 million, right? Why is he telling me this? Why wouldn't he just put in the 10,000 and get the $1 million? It wouldn't be that hard for him to figure it out. I'm not like, and
I borrowed 10,000.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Be like, how about I borrow 10,000? I'll give you 11,000 back. Like, like tomorrow. That's would be more realistic, right? But But when it's too
Yeah.
good to be true, it probably is 99.99999% of the time. And people have to take a step back and really understand that, like, because that's when they get in those kind of troubles. But then there is the backup your stuff or getting SIM swapped or things like that are obviously real scams too,
Well,
and real.
Yep.
And,
Wallet drainers.
and if you're in crypto, there's a high probability you're going to get SIM swapped at some point. It seems like.
Or you'll be a target of it, right?
Yeah. I was in a Bitcoin room and I couldn't believe on how many other Bitcoiners were in that room and saying, yeah, I've been SIM swapped before. Yeah, I've been SIM swapped. And it was like half the room seemed like they've been SIM swapped at some point.
Yeah.
Which, and I've been SIM swapped and it's a horrible nightmare for people.
Yeah. I've been pretty lucky. Like I had a pretty good OPSEC when I got into crypto before I just because I was messing around with different things. So like I was using alternate emails and VoIP numbers and things like that initially to kind of like avoid direct contact with like my everyday stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's helped or not at all, but I also I switched my carrier to Ifani so that because they're a SIM swap protection company, basically it's right. Like they just put a SIM lock on it, and I get better service now than when I was with Verizon. And then you get a normal carrier. So I'm on it now that I'm on an AT&T, but they have multiple carriers. So like it's kind of like you're covered, and basically you just can't get SIM swapped because it goes through them.
That came up. Ifani came up, and because that is definitely a solution.
Yeah, they're great.
Well, I mean, so last time I saw Chris was at a crypto event on security, right? And this is one of the things I had brought up. It was like they're talking about blockchain security, and I was like, well, guys, like, your weakest point is your SIM, and until we solve that problem, like, we're going to have an issue onboarding millions of people into digital finance, of doing finance on their phones and banking on their phones. Your
phone's your identity, right?
Yeah.
And so like so we're going back to like the investigation stuff, right? You get people coming to you and they're telling you all the time, like, here's what's happening. How do I get my money back? Right? That's their first thing. They always think, well, if I get my money back, it's going to fix all of these problems that I have.
Yeah.
And that's not how it works, right? Because like if you're in a relationship with somebody and you took out 90% of the money and you sent it overseas or cashed it into crypto and sent it off somewhere thinking you were using some trading platform and increasing your wealth, like, getting that initial money back is not going to repair the damage of the lying or the mistrust of the relationship. And so there's a lot of other components, right? And so I've always wanted to be able to help the worst of the worst, right? The people who can't afford services, right? But when I was getting into the investigation work, I had already been out of work for like a year. I had like let the whole team go. I had to reinvent Coinstructive, like rise from the ashes, like the phoenix. and it turned out like, okay, well, investigations was something that kind of like actually fell into my lap. It wasn't like, I'm going to do investigations. I was training banking compliance professionals, law enforcement, and attorneys on blockchain forensics. And then at the time, CipherTrace was still in operation, and they started referring victims to me. And then I turned it into a business model. But there was always people who came to us that would be like, I can't afford a couple extra grand, right? Like, I just can't. And
so do you have a nonprofit organization or a foundation where people can donate?
So that's why I've started the Crypto Recovery Alliance, because I wanted to be able to afford, I wanted to be able to provide the opportunity for people who cannot afford services, right? So the worst of the worst. So like maybe you only lost 50 grand, but that was
here's
and you're on a fixed income.
The average, what's that thing? And I know I'm gonna, again, another one of these numbers I'm gonna throw out here that's just ballpark and I don't know, but it's, remember there's like that study, like the average person, American, can't afford, like if their tires blew out or something, like they couldn't afford anything above like $400 like in an emergency. Like that's insane. So you just said, even if you only lost 50K, most people, if they lose a 1K, it's devastating for them, right? So it's, we do live in that magical internet money world bubble where where 50K is a single NFT, right? But that's nonsense to most people, right? That's $1,000, $5,000 would be devastating. So you guys are doing that, and I'd like to hear more about it. But really quickly, when it comes to like investigating when people do get stuff, what percentage of the time do you end up recovering funds, and then, or is the investigation more about documenting it for insurance purposes or things like that? Like what's the outcome a lot of times? As I know,
Well, I just know from my own.
I think I know the answer, which is sad, but I want to know.
When I get people that come to me, they go, "Hey, I'll pay you to help me figure out how to get this money out," and I already know I'm not going to be able to get the money out because it's gone. And I'm like, "No, you don't have to pay me. I'm going to help you for free. I'm going to explain this. And by the time he's done, he's going to be glad that he didn't offer me money, right?"
Yeah. Okay, so. All right. What was the
how often do you actually recover?
Oh, yeah. Funds? So the recovery percentage is really in the 5 to 10% range, and it's been getting lower over time because the scammers have been getting much, much better at obfuscating movement. And like right now, we're seeing stuff. A lot of stuff is bridging over to Tron. USDT on Tron, and then they're using like bots and stuff, and they're splitting things up into like hundreds of different paths. Like it's not human. There's no human doing this anymore, right? And so
the human obviously set up the system, and now they're
you can see right where the funds and stuff are going, but by the time you track this stuff down, you find an actual exchange where things were getting cashed out. One of the problems is that even if let's say you find, so the stuff's going to foreign exchange that likely be cooperative. That's the big problem, right? A lot of these exchanges are not even going to cooperate with the U.S. law enforcement.
Yeah.
The whole process in general is actually very complex. And because law enforcement has to be involved on the seizure aspect of it, there's lots of hoops that they have to jump through, especially when it goes overseas. So the recovery aspect is usually really low. And that's why when I was putting together the idea of forming this crypto recovery alliance, it was going to have two other things that were like almost, I consider, as important, if not more important than doing the blockchain forensics tracing. Now, the blockchain forensics tracing is important because two things. One, you can give actionable intelligence to law enforcement so they can make more connections with like other cases that are already existing.
Yeah.
One of the big problems in crypto fraud is that people don't report it. It's so underreported.
We caught something, and this is something that I've been wanting to do, and Rankin and I think we have like this responsibility, and I think maybe with your help, or maybe we'll just reach out to some contacts that I have. But we stopped one of our portfolio companies from doing something, and they kind of knew it, but they were asking us, and basically somebody was trying to scam them, and we stopped it before it actually happened. And we've been talking about it, going, shit, we should probably report this because somebody might get scammed, and then at least we'll have given the FBI whatever extra points of information we have that they don't have. But also, people are running a company, people are living their lives, and they're like, oh, well, I didn't get defrauded, so I'm not going to report it. I'm going to spend a bunch of hours now answering questions to law enforcement. But it's like we kind of owe it to the community and to everyone else to report it and talk about it, right?
Yeah, well, that's a very unique situation, because usually I find that people after the fact, right? And there's this shame of, how could I have allowed myself to fall
what's
victim,
funny is
right?
I've sent, like, back in the day when it was like maybe just a couple $100, and now it's meaningful, but like sent like 1 ETH to something that I thought was probably a scam, but I was like, in the off chance it's not, this is kind of a cool thing, I'm going to get these tokens, whatever. It was really stupid, but like, I've done stuff like that in the past, and I think that a lot of people in the space, but it's like a little calculated bet of $100 or $200.
We've all wasted money in crypto. Come on.
Yeah, we've all wasted. Exactly. It's kind of like feeling bad about losing money gambling. Like, you knew this was a gamble. So, but But then there's the situations where people do see something like that, don't know it's a scam, and put like their life savings in or put thousands and thousands of dollars in because they, again, too good to be true. You have to have your spidey sense up.
Yeah.
So,
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, but we got a guy that was referred to us. He only lost $800.
yeah.
Right. Like, and normally I'm not taking those cases at Constructive because
they can't afford to, like, 800, a percentage of,
not worth it.
Yeah, if they paid you $800, it would be worth your time maybe for a few hours or something at most, right? But
well, that's when we have
problem,
educational
right?
videos. I think that's when you need educational videos out there to explain the basics of crypto to people, so that way they have an understanding.
Or even something like the Crypto Recovery Alliance, which we should go back to, is if you could start growing it and have like a team of people who are more like customer servicey people just to help those few $100 scams, even if it's just to tell them, I'm sorry you lost it, and hold their hand through the shame of dealing with it, so that you can also get that information, because somebody might have an $800 scam. I might have a $10,000 scam to the same people, but I might not report the 10,000. They might report the 800, and you could probably set up information.
You've nailed it.
Probably set up an AI bot that gives basic instructions based off of your feedback and what they're giving information, because so many of these cases are similar.
But you want to document it all. You want to have all the info.
Well, yeah, you would have a documented conversation with the AI. You document the conversation with the AI, have the AI feed it, and then see, if it, like, it's just like a tax reporting software, right? You go in there, you ask certain questions, it gives you this certain path asking you certain questions, and based off of that, okay, can we give you an answer, or do we have to forward you off to somebody who's a professional?
So you're hired, David. You volunteer for the AI chatbot creation.
Turns out it's just David, like
frantically typing in the background.
Voice like those early days of the ChatGPT stuff where people were like not 100% sure it was a chatbot and not just like thousands of people in a warehouse in India,
This large language model is not really
the spelling mistakes are very,
it's very human-like.
Well, those really bad SEO websites that pre-AI and from a few years ago, like you would get to a website that's like you searched, I don't know, so I'm thinking of something random, right? Like, cough medicine or something. Like you search something like whatever, and you get to one of those content websites, like if you're having a cough and feeling whatever, but it's like in broken English, and you're like, what the hell is this? And you realize like, oh, these people just made 1 million content websites, and they had to make them different so they'd be picked up by SEO, something like that.
Yeah. That's a big SEO scam too. So the recovery. So one of the big problems in the industry is the recovery scam. Yeah. Right. So Constructive is a legitimate company. There's several other legitimate companies out there that are doing it, but there's a lot of these recovery scam companies. So the victim's path is I open my wallet or I go to my exchange and I'm sending directly to the scammer. Like I'm convinced that I'm investing in a platform or I'm sending money to them, whatever. The money's gone. You eventually, the victim comes back to the wallet company, the exchange, and says, this is what I did. How do I get help? What do I do next? And the exchange is like, sorry, you took the money off our platform. Nothing we can do. It's a one-way transaction. Go to the police. Then the victim contacts the police. And 99% of the police departments across the country don't have access to these tools. And they say, sorry, there's nothing we can do. Go to the feds. They go to the feds. They fill out an IC3 report with the FBI. They might even call Secret Service. They talk to somebody and they usually get, hey, we're really sorry you lost $150,000 or $250,000 or $500,000, but it's below our threshold to look at. Sorry. Good luck. Now, everybody at this point, like a human being, this is not like a weekend at Vegas where you lost $500 at the tables, like learning to play roulette or craps or something, right? Oh, it hurts. This is like, the money's still like, you think like it's there, it's recoverable. I got to get it back. I need help. Nobody's helping. You pull out your phone and you got the internet in your pocket and you go, how do I get my crypto back? The number one advertiser was a recovery scam company. And they were charging 10 grand up front for people. And they were telling them, we'll get you your money back. And they would even like show them a wallet eventually and be like, we found it. It's right here. You just got to pay us 10%. Same scam as before, right? And so these fake exchanges were literally creating these recovery scam companies and passing people off to them as soon as they weren't going to get any more money out of them.
That's insane.
Right.
Yeah.
So when like the concept about the Crypto Recovery Alliance came around, yes, I want to be able to do blockchain forensics because it's important. You need the information to be able to share with law enforcement so they can take action. But you also need two other components, which are preventative education, because once you're a scam victim, you're on a scam victim list and they keep retargeting you different ways, different methods, right? But they don't care if it's 3 years down the road. If they can get $1,500 out of you, that might last them a year or 6 months, depending on where they're living.
Well, think about it. Like David, you are really good at like going and doing the forensic thing where you bring those charts of the flow of money and stuff from that one website that that we've looked at before. And like you could very easily have a landing page. It's like, I help you recover your crypto, knowing full well you never will. You go, hey, it's a gamble. I can't guarantee anything, but it's 10 grand, right? Yeah. And then you spit out a report like you did. And you say for a week that you've been working, right? So you make someone feel like you're working, and then a week later you take that thing that took you 5 minutes, you send it to them and be like, here's where the money went, but I'm sorry, I don't think we can recover it. Yeah. And now you just made 10 grand for like,
Well, and that's why I don't charge, because by the time I talk to somebody, I'm like,
you're honest, right? But what I'm saying is that think about how many scammers and people are out there.
If I was a criminal, I could absolutely make a shit ton of money.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. I'm like, man, I'm doing it the wrong way.
But
like I could be a bajillionaire.
I have kids, and I like being in the U.S., and so like I try.
And I have morals and ethics.
Exactly. So. Well, that's the thing. It's the morals and It's the morals and ethics, because somewhere in between is a just unethical SEO company, like the same idiots and bad people who sell like online vitamins or snake oil or whatever, where they go like, they basically just do those click funnels things, and they go, oh, I'm going to buy these useless vitamins for $1. I'm going to sell them for $20, and I'm just going to print money all day long to really dumb people, not really dumb people, but people who are, who are desperate for something, right? I don't know that's what these people are doing, right?
I don't know if you've been on Discord lately, but every time you go into a crypto forum and you type in a comment or question, you'll automatically get somebody who pops up and goes, oh, this is support. How can we help you? Which is absolutely not support at all. Right.
That was how people would fish. That was how people would fish your password and email address in the AOL days. Yeah. They would literally send notes to people randomly saying like, hey, this is a customer support person at AOL. I just need to confirm your username and password. And people would send it to them, and then they would steal their accounts.
Well, and it's getting even worse with the fact that we have AI now that can duplicate your voice and your image. And
that's going to make it even crazier. And so tell us, how can we tell us what Crypto Recovery is doing now, and how we can support it, and maybe it, what the whole community can do to support it.
Yeah. So the third thing, which I think is the most important thing of the Alliance, is going to be this aspect of mental health care, right? So yes, I can get somebody to do an investigation and tell me where the money went, right? But what David mentioned was, at a certain point down the road, after enough time has passed, people are going to realize, I'm not probably going to get this money back. Right. I always tell people, you're going to get it. If you're going to get it back, it's going to be within the first 6 months. If it doesn't, it's either going to be many, many years or never, because it's going to be part of an investigation, which means there's going to be a seizure and a bust, and then it's going to have to go through the court stuff, and then they're going to have to sell the assets. That's the other thing people don't realize, is that if you get restitution and you lost 1 Bitcoin, they don't give you 1 Bitcoin. They give
the value of it on the day it was stolen.
Could be $35,000, and Bitcoin's at 100K right now. It's like a slap in the face. Not only that, it's also a kick in the nuts. I'll tell you why. Because they tax you on it. It's considered income. Your money that you had stolen, you get it back as restitution, now becomes income. It's like double taxation. I don't understand.
Because it was because it's as if you sold it on that day, but. So you pay taxes.
That's stolen from you.
I
know. I don't understand.
I've somebody. Here's the thing: is it will take.
It's better to keep the loss.
it'll take
Yeah.
it'll take someone with tens of millions of dollars
To change that law.
to sue the government to change that law. But until, God forbid, someone with tens of millions of dollars gets something stolen from them.
Bitcoin. Some congressman's going to lose his Bitcoin and decide that law needs to be changed.
From your mouth to God's ears. That's a horrible thing to wish upon anybody, even a congressman.
But that's the three thing, right? So get the blockchain forensics investigations work for free if you qualify financially. Get access to lower no cost mental health care services so you can process being the victim and like dealing with the trauma of actually going through that and processing it, because like I said, the trust is broken. Like you have to repair the relationships. You got to deal with all the things that are going on in your life that are being affected because of this situation, like your inability to sleep and focus at work, right? You lose your job, you get divorced, you get depressed, you go into this spiral, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes it ends with suicide because people don't see a way out.
That was my biggest concern. The guy I met a couple months ago lost $250,000, which was money he basically saved up. He still had his pension, but he based his life savings he had put into crypto, trusted this person over a number of months, and then lost it all. And the first question, are you going to be okay? And he's like, yeah, I got my pension. And he's like, I'll be fine. He's like, it just really sucks. And I said, okay, but they can say that they'll be okay, but
think about when stock markets crash and things happen, like it's really
I swear, after being SIM swapped, right? Simple shit.
I know.
Like my wife doesn't remember a password or something like that, and all of a sudden anxiety literally comes on you because you feel like, oh my god, am I getting hacked again or something going on? Like you get
the other day you got the swap, and then I got logged out of something, and a week or two later, and I was like, oh shit, am I getting like I'm freaking out on your behalf.
It's contagious.
I was gonna make a really bad poor taste joke about now you won't even buy a microwave for your family. Sorry, there's a separate conversation we had. It's not good. It's not in good taste at all, but it is horrible, right? And that's where it goes to like what I was saying before, Chris, about you saying, and this person only lost $50,000 for most Americans, right? And then imagine like we're not just in the crypto bubble, we're in the America bubble, and our idea of economy might be horrible right now. It costs $50 to buy McDonald's for your family. It feels like everything is falling apart, but like we're in fucking paradise compared to half of the world, right? Like we're still so lucky and fortunate to be American, right? And everyone watching that, this coming from me, who's the biggest critic in the world of everything. I'm just joking. Okay. But really we are. And so for most people, that's why I think something like Crypto Recovery Alliance is even more important, because you have to be able to provide these services, not just for people who lose 50 or 100,000 or $1 million, like for the average person I grew up with. And even for me, and most times of my life, losing $1,000 was devastating, right? You drive an old car, your tire blows out and you're fucked because you can't get to work. And then you can't get to work, then you won't be able to even, then you go from not being able to afford a tire to not being able to afford to eat, right? And that's how it is for some people. And, Chris, so tell people, where can we go? How do we support it? I was gonna make some dumb joke about, Crypto Recovery Alliance should launch like a token. Let's not go there. But you know what? Like there's groups that I think are incredible, like the Digital Chamber of Commerce and things like that, and they do fight the good fight and on behalf of the whole industry, right? But getting into the nitty gritty of actually helping the individual who gets scammed or helping, and I think it's really incredibly important.
So there's a couple of different ways that people can help. And
thank you for sharing that, Rankin.
We're still not technically a nonprofit. We're waiting for our IRS letter to come back. Should be back. It's been submitted, so we're waiting. It should be hopefully sometime.
Is there a reason why it's taking so long, or is that just the normal process of creating a nonprofit?
It takes several months.
Wow.
It can take up to 6 months or more. I've heard recently that some things are getting through in 2 months, 2 or 3 months. But we'll just kind of have to wait and see. But the great thing is that all donations to an eventual nonprofit are retroactive to the date that the company was formed. So we were actually formed in March of this year. So any donations to the CRA or the Crypto Recovery Alliance, you could claim them as tax deductible. I just can't give you a letter right now.
Yeah. So, but we should probably,
targets,
yeah, it's one thing for us, but like if we're saying it, shouting it from a mountaintop, it probably makes more sense to wait until it's official. But we should. I would love to help any way we can and to have you on again and rally some troops around us, right? Like some of those crypto lawyers, some of those groups.
We're looking for volunteers as well. So we need we're going to need investigators, so people who have a background in crypto blockchain forensics and want to use those skills, because the couple things the Alliance is going to be able to do, right, is we're going to provide services to victims, but we're also going to be a conduit for career paths for people to get in, right? You might be in college, you want to get into crypto, maybe you're doing intake calls and you're talking to the victims as they're coming in, right? And you're helping people get to their appointments and funneling people, and you're learning about that. And then maybe you get to become an investigator and you work your way up, right? And then you start actually doing blockchain forensic. That's a career path, right? So we're creating a career path as well for people. So volunteers, donors, the donor types, right? We mentioned like where one of the problems is the industry has a bad PR problem around this, right? Like people go back to the exchange and then they go, the exchange didn't help me, and then I found myself in another scam, right? These exchanges, it costs, and wallet companies and these places where the people are going back, it costs nothing to them to be able to refer them to us. Now, we need finances to maintain the operations, obviously, right? But it really costs nothing to these wallet providers, these exchange companies, to say, hey, look, here's a trusted entity. Well, I've even been talking to state regulators, because some of them are getting Chainalysis subscriptions, and victims are coming to like certain state departments,
what I was going to
say
say
is, hey, I got scammed. And these departments are like, oh, well, we don't have the capacity to help everybody. And there's no nonprofit really that's able to do this yet. So it's fitting this really unique niche that the industry really needs.
Yeah, and what I was gonna say is that once it's official too, and you've got the company or the nonprofit a little more together from it's ordained by the powers that be or whatever that you're a nonprofit. I would bet that a lot of the exchanges, a lot of the wallet companies, groups like Chainalysis would probably one, support it, but also like give certain services for free and things like that, because I would assume that they believe it's as important as we are, right? Like Ledger, I think, would love to be able to, point their, once you get to a certain amount of education on their website, go, well, you want to learn more, go to or have you been scammed before you start, paying groups, or even like, hey, you're a group that helps with recovery. Don't trust any groups that you just Google online until they're listed on the Crypto Recovery Alliance website as a legitimate group that actually helps with recovery, right? And we're gonna have to give you a hard time to not just put Coinstructive at the top of everything.
Oh no, absolutely. That was one of the things as the board. I said, no, but I know you're joking, but that's like, no, that was a legitimate conversation we had. We're like, you can't Coinstructive can't be the referral source. There has to be other entities that people are like, look, here's 5 or 6 trusted entities. Just use one of them. Just don't use the recovery scam company. I don't want to hear back from you in 3 weeks and be like, I got scammed again.
Oh, yeah, I know. That's the worst part of it all, is that, these things, it's really sad and screwed up that there's sort of there's predators that or they're like sharks, out for blood, and one shark nips you and then a bunch of other sharks come around to try and get any bits they can off of you, right? Like it's so messed up.
I love helping people, right? That's really the passion behind where this came from. And it took me a while because I had to be able to support myself first before I could do something where I could help people for free. But this is the real, this is what the passion about where Coinstructive originally came from, right? It was helping victims, and everybody loves the concept. I think the hard part is really getting people to want to take the step to actually donate or really volunteer, right? Because everybody I talk to, just like you said, this is a great mission. This is great. I love it. You guys are doing great work. I want to be supportive. And then like,
well, here's what I will say. A good, easy first step for us, right? But I'm down to do more and volunteer some time or even money on behalf of myself and maybe DGB once I talk to my partners. But what I would say is that we have this stream, right? There's hundreds of people watching right now. If we promote it a little more in advance and stuff like that too, we could get more people live, and then we take that video and get it in front of a lot more. But regardless of that, like when you have that, the full blessing of this is an official nonprofit, you have like the tax ID number and all that stuff. I'm promise you can come on here, you could take over the stream, make a presentation of why you need resources, what you're going to spend it on, like the normal pitch you would give to everyone, and we'll have that on here, and I'll interrupt way less and let you guide the conversation so that we can help rally some volunteers and some donations and stuff behind what you do. Maybe even put together something, a more event type of event, right? Chris, where are you based? If you say that out loud on things.
I did San Diego.
Okay.
I'm in San Diego.
You're in San Diego. Oh shit, I'm going to San Diego on Thursday. But I'm going to be crazy busy. But that's awesome. So maybe
I'm going to be in Riverside. So
oh, that's funny. So we should, we can even plan an event, right? Like an in-person thing or something where, the money's donated to the cause, and we'll find somebody to, cover the pizzas or the whatever's, or I'll buy them or something, just so that we can help do some educational things, whatever it takes.
Well, so I know Chris does a lot of educational events. He goes out there and does a lot of seminars, whatever. Do you end up anticipating having videos on some of these security concerns on your platform that people can go then watch? Because I think that's probably needed, is to having legitimate like places like as to where they can actually learn, rather than going and searching for things on YouTube and finding a scam site that's gonna not help them.
So I don't want to recreate the educational component stuff necessarily from scratch. Some of the scam stuff probably will be, but like the blockchain basics, there's so many people out there that have done that kind of stuff. I'm looking for a partner who's got materials that they want to share or work with the CRA and say, hey, look, don't recreate that from scratch. I got it all for you, right? Let's partner with somebody who's got that stuff.
You share that library already.
Yeah. And then yes, some of the educational components and that kind of stuff, that will all be there, and we'll create all that so that there's information that people can go and get and learn. Because I that's, you got to be able to know enough to make informed decisions.
Right. Education is key. I mean, I look at these people who get scammed, right? And I'm always like, that's the whole reason we're here, is hoping that people, before they start getting themselves into deeper trouble, go look up a local group to try to learn more about the crypto that they're jumping into before they start jumping into it. And there was a guy like a week or two ago that he only lost maybe 1,000 or 2. He said, like, it was a week's of work. I said, yeah, but I'm glad that you came, because he came so he could understand more about what he was doing before he put more money into it. I said, you're exactly who we're here for, because we rather that you lose maybe a little bit of money, but come and learn, rather than being the guy who lost $250,000.
Yeah.
Because he didn't seek education before he got it.
And we're running out of time, but I'm going to throw this out there, and then Rankin, if you have any other questions, I'll let you take the lead for the end, because I've been interrupting and doing my thing. But there's groups all over the country, right? Like in Southern California here where I am, I started many years ago a thing called 805 Startups. Now my friend Gary Livingston, he runs it. It's killer. Anyone who's watching and you're in the area, 805startups.com. It's rad. And they took over a bunch of the local meetup groups also for all of Southern California when people stopped paying for them. People run out of money. And then Gary was like, I'll pay for everyone's meetup groups to keep them alive. So he has like the list of all of the startup-y, techie meetup groups for all of Southern California. What would be great is like for you, I know for San Diego, not that a huge of a deal. It's a few hour drive for you. You come up and he could like plan in advance, a month in advance. Chris is coming to tell everyone, give everyone the cautionary tales and educate them on whatever. You could probably do that across the country with different groups, or at least try to plan it around other travel or things, right? And that's a low hanging fruit, but still not easy thing to do, right?
Well, I'm really thankful right now. I've been given the opportunity to become a contributing writer at Forbes for crypto.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
So I was specifically trying to talk more about fraud and crypto. So I think I'll be able to help utilize that platform to kind of help also spread that message. So I'm working on an article right now. Hopefully I'll get it out in the next before Christmas. So
nice. Yeah, share that with us and we'll put it in
and
our
it's going to be
newsletter.
about this one I think is really timely because it's going to be about things to ask yourself when you're not sure about the platform that you're working on. Like, how do you identify a scam platform, or how do I identify that you're working with a scammer, right? So, and I'll just give you like one or two things right now for your listeners, right? Like, if you go to a site and there is no license, right? Like a registered license for the crypto exchange, that is a red flag, right? They should have some sort of licensing depending on where they're based in what jurisdiction, right? So just do a little research on the company. If they have an address listed, look at the address on Google Maps. See what it is.
Like, it's not like
I
a
did that
PO
once,
box
like,
or some random house or even just a fake address. The issue is you got to look
School
up
of
the
Ballet
address.
in New York. Like, I was like, how is that? That's not that cannot be crypto.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing is a lot of these are overseas, right? And one of the things I've always warned people is, you have no jurisdiction if you lose your stuff in an overseas exchange. Good luck trying to get your stuff back. Like, we're not in U.S. courts anymore. So, like, that's another thing to look at is where is it at?
I want to say thank you both for having me on today. It's been a pleasure. You guys are so much fun to be with.
We'll definitely hang.
Me.
We'll definitely hang more, and we will we'll have you back to promote what you're doing, because it is really, really important work. And I know that I feel grateful that you find clients that can afford to pay you on those big things, but I think that we're gonna find through what you do with Crypto Recovery Alliance, for every one of those, there's probably hundreds of smaller groups that just don't even reach out to you because they know they can't afford in advance, and there needs to be something. And I think that just having someone they could call or even text with that goes like, hey, I'm so sorry, this happens all the time, will make people feel a little better on that mental health side of things, where you feel helpless, right? And it's really messed up.
Yeah, I want to give people like a platform so they can have like a support group, so they can go and share their stories and hear like, oh, it's not just me, I'm not alone, like this happens to other people too. And right, like that can be really beneficial in the healing process. So, and then there was one other thing I was going to mention. So we're getting more into the expert witness work, which is really great. So like mergers and acquisitions, bankruptcy, receiverships, and believe it or not, divorce cases. So every year that crypto's been around, more and more people acquire it, but people are still getting divorced at the same rates they always have. So, and people think they can hide. People think they can hide their funds from their spouse, male or female. I've seen it both ways. So, it's not a pretty thing when you go into. But the great thing is, you go into arbitration, you show the documents, and they're like, we're gonna get back to you because it's like irrefutable evidence, right? So it's really great.
I've helped so many people create crypto wallets and stuff over time. And back in the day, one of the things I love to do, and is like buy someone an ENS address, or I used to do it a lot, and be like, oh, like you set up your first crypto wallet, I just sent you your first name .eth or whatever. And I've had someone lie to my face and tell me they didn't do something that they did. And then you just look at the wallet that the thing was done from, and you look at the first transaction, it's me sending them their first name .eth. And you're like, you idiot, that's your wallet. I know it's your wallet. Like, but people just, again, I think what you said, it's not men or women, it's not geographic location. I always say this about all things, and it goes directly to the greed side of things, and it goes to people being unethical and just people being assholes. It drills down to one simple thing, right? Every kid and person you grew up with in high school, in junior high, right? They all grew up to be adults, right? And some of them, you go through phases. You know, you were in a butthole in high school. You're not going to be one when you're 40, right? But
Hopefully.
hopefully, but sometimes people don't. But most of the time, people don't change that much. So those same idiots that were 20 years
They're just
old,
older idiots.
are older idiots. Exactly. They're still assholes. They're still greedy. And gender, geographic location, being like, here's a thing I have to tell people a lot. Just because someone is rich doesn't make them evil. Just because someone is poor doesn't make them dumb. It magnifies their evil. But that's the whole thing. So you just look at any subset of society, there's going to be the same pro rata amount of greed, the same pro rata amount of asshole, the same pro rata amount of stupid or kind or generous or, you know, amazing, right? And you have to remember that. And again, gender doesn't change that, age doesn't change that, and where you are in the world doesn't change that either. People have to remember that. And so, you know, again, take what I just said with a grain of salt, obviously, but you know, it's something you have to think about, because I grew up, you know, when you're a kid, you think, oh, all adults are really smart, right? And then you grow up with the kids that you grew up with, and you're like, oh yeah, that guy is still a total idiot, right? Or that guy's still a total ass, and they're still going to be greedy, and they're still not going to be nice. And when you were a kid, you thought people would grow out of that, or people would just, you know, adults are smart. You grow up, you realize that's not the truth, and it doesn't just go with being kind or being mean, is what I'm saying, right? That's a great Chris, point. So at DJ Kinkle on Twitter, but also at Coinstructive. Follow, if you're watching us on Twitter, you'll see Coinstructive already tagged on there. But to tell people where else to go for you.
At Crypto Recovery Alliance is also. Oh wait, no, it's at. What is it? Oh, we did it.
So are you a DJ too?
Get your crypto back. Get your crypto back. That's the handle for the Recovery Alliance.
Cool. And something I forgot to throw at the beginning, if you're watching this or if you watch it late or live or whatever, go to dgb.vc, sign up on the newsletter there. If you're an early stage startup and you want to pitch us, please go there. We invest in early stage blockchain companies. And if you're an investor who's looking to invest in companies in our space, reach out. We'd love to hang out with you too, and you know, help guide you into the space.
I saw somebody put the CRA, or Dave, was that you put the link?
Yeah,
to
I'll throw it back on here. It's
and I saw some other great comments that came through the chat. I believe Ken was one, and Pravi was other.
Yeah, we had Kevin and Pravi and Pravi. Do you know Pravi?
No, I don't, but thank
Praveen.
You for the.
Praveen is awesome. He's actually does a lot of like nonprofit work in terms of like, you know, in Miami and stuff. So, you know, he was a part of Coin Center and did some things. So maybe we'll introduce you to Pravi at some point too, because if you start doing events or you get this thing going, he can definitely be helpful. He's an OG in our space, and I love it. And I can say these things out loud and say he's a good person to follow because I've also known him in person for years before crypto and stuff. He for a while was out here at those 805 startup events with me. Now he's, you know, traveling the world doing cool like VR and crypto stuff and being a rock star. So really fun stuff. And all right, thank you so much, Chris. It's been awesome having you. We'll definitely have you back, and keep us updated, especially on when it's, you know, fully a nonprofit and when you get those articles out, so we can help share them and spread the word.
And I look forward to seeing you again in person next year at the California Blockchain Policy and Law Enforcement Summit.
Hopefully, it's sooner than that.
Hopefully sooner than that.
Heck yeah! All right, thanks guys.
Everybody.
See you guys.